Content warning. This story contains violence and themes involving assault. The stranger in the waiting room had been watching her for 3 hours, and Felicity Sinclair was too tired to care. Her shift had bled past midnight into that gray nowhere time when exhaustion settled into bones like cold. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's emergency room hummed their relentless song, and Felicity's feet ached inside her practical sneakers as she signed off on her last patient chart. 22 hours. She'd pulled a double because Dr. Morris called in sick, and now the November night pressed against the hospital windows like something waiting. She gathered her coat from the staff room, her movements slow and automatic. The parking garage assault had happened 4 nights ago. Another nurse, Emma, walked to her car and didn't make it inside before someone grabbed her from behind. Security found her 20 minutes later, shaken and bruised but alive. The man had run when headlights swept across them. Since then, the women on night shift traveled in pairs. Felicity checked her phone. Her usual walking partner had left an hour ago, family emergency. The parking garage stretched across the street, a concrete mouth of shadows and echoing levels. Her little sedan waited on the 3rd floor, and the thought of walking there alone sent ice down her spine. She pushed through the waiting room doors, scanning for anyone who might be finishing a shift. The space had emptied except for one man sitting in the corner. The same man who'd been there when she'd rushed through earlier, and before that, and before that. He never checked in at the desk, never picked up the outdated magazines. Just sat with perfect stillness, dressed in dark clothes that looked expensive even under the harsh lights. His hair was so pale it seemed to drink the fluorescence. White blonde, nearly silver, falling to his shoulders in a way that should have looked unkempt, but instead seemed intentional. His skin matched, that particular shade of pale that suggested he'd never seen summer. Everything about him was severe and elegant, from his high cheekbones to the way he held himself, spine straight, hands resting on his knees like a king waiting for court. Felicity hesitated. Something about him felt wrong in a way she couldn't articulate. Not threatening exactly, just other. Like he existed slightly apart from the normal world. But Emma's frightened face flashed through her mind, the bruises on her throat. She approached him, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Up close, he was even more striking. His eyes lifted to meet hers, and they were the palest gray she'd ever seen, almost silver to match his hair. Beautiful and completely unreadable. "Excuse me," Felicity said, hating how her voice wavered. "I know this is strange, but would you mind walking me to my car? It's just across the street in the garage. There was an incident recently, and I don't want to go alone." He stood without a word. The movement was fluid, inhumanly graceful, and suddenly he towered over her. 6 foot something of lean strength wrapped in a black coat that fell to his knees. He gestured toward the door with one pale hand. Felicity's instincts screamed contradiction. Every horror movie said don't trust the strange man. But something in his silence felt safe rather than menacing, and she was so tired. "Thank you," she said. They walked into the November cold together. He moved beside her without sound, his footsteps silent on the pavement while hers clicked and scraped. She found herself talking to fill the quiet, words spilling out in her exhaustion. "I'm a doctor here. ER tonight was brutal. Car accident on the interstate, whole family. We saved the mother and both kids, but the father." She shook her head. "Sometimes I don't know why I do this. 22 hours of other people's worst days." He said nothing, but somehow his presence felt like listening. The parking garage loomed ahead. They crossed the empty street and entered the concrete structure, their footsteps echoing now. Hers, anyway. His continued in that unsettling silence. The lighting was poor, bulbs burned out in patches, and Felicity's keys were already in her hand, clutched between her fingers the way the hospital security seminar had taught them. 3rd floor. The elevator groaned upward. In the enclosed space, she noticed he had no smell. Most people carried something, cologne or soap or coffee or sweat. He was absence, a blank space. "I'm Felicity," she offered. "Felicity Sinclair." His eyes met hers. Still he didn't speak, but he inclined his head slightly. Acknowledgement. Her car sat in its usual spot, blessedly alone in the pool of functioning overhead light. Felicity unlocked it with shaking hands, adrenaline finally catching up now that safety was close. "Thank you," she said again, turning to face him. "Really? I know I'm probably being paranoid, but it means a lot." He studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small card, pressed it into her palm. "Heavy stock, expensive, a phone number, nothing else." "If you need me," he said. His voice was deep and accent-touched, something old European she couldn't place. 4 words, the first he'd spoken, and they settled into her chest like a promise. Then he turned and walked back toward the stairwell, dissolving into shadow. Felicity sat in her car for 5 minutes, letting the heat blast, staring at the card. The number was local. No name, no explanation. Just, "If you need me," spoken in a voice like dark velvet. She drove home as dawn started to gray the sky, and she didn't throw the card away. The next night, he was in the waiting room again. Felicity noticed him immediately when she came on shift. Same corner, same perfect stillness, same dark clothes. She'd almost convinced herself she'd imagined how strange he was, that exhaustion had painted normal things weird. But no. In the evening light coming through the windows, he looked even more otherworldly. That white hair seemed to glow. She worked her shift, 12 hours this time, manageable. A broken arm, 2 cases of flu, 1 elderly man with pneumonia, a teenager who'd tried something stupid with a knife. Standard weeknight chaos. And every time she passed through the waiting room, he was there, unmoving, patient. When she finished at 11, she found herself looking for him automatically. He stood when she approached, and they walked to her car again, without discussion. This time she didn't try to fill the silence. She was learning that he didn't require conversation. His presence was the point, solid and unbreakable beside her. At her car, she paused. "Will you be here tomorrow?" He nodded once. "Okay," Felicity said. She didn't know what else to say. "Okay, good night." Again, he waited until she locked her doors before he left. It became routine. 5 nights a week, Felicity worked the ER, and 5 nights a week, the pale stranger waited to walk her to her car. She learned his patterns. He arrived around 10 in the evening and never left until she did, no matter how long her shift ran. He never ate, never drank the terrible waiting room coffee, never seemed bored or impatient. She asked the intake nurses about him after a week. "That man who comes in at night, does he ever check in?" They looked at her blankly. "What man?" "Tall, pale hair, always in dark clothes. He sits in the corner." "Haven't seen anyone like that," said Jennifer, who'd been working intake for 15 years and noticed everything. Felicity let it drop, but unease curled in her stomach. How did they not see him? He was impossible to miss. 2 weeks in, she tried to learn more about him. They were crossing to the garage, breath misting in the December cold, when she asked, "Do you have a name? I can't keep calling you the stranger in my head." He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Jorah." "Jorah," she repeated. The name felt old in her mouth, biblical almost. "I like it. Does it mean something?" "Rain in autumn," he said, in the old language. What old language? But he'd gone silent again, and she knew he wouldn't elaborate. Still, it was progress. She had a name now. Jorah, who walked like a ghost and spoke in riddles and made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. On a Thursday, 3 weeks after their first walk, everything changed. Felicity's shift had been light, unusual for a Thursday. She finished her charting by 10:30 and grabbed her coat, looking forward to getting home at a reasonable hour. Maybe she'd actually sleep. Jorah rose when she entered the waiting room, as always. But something was different. His entire body had gone tense, coiled like a spring. Those pale eyes swept the space with predatory focus. "What's wrong?" Felicity asked. He moved to her side, closer than he usually stood. "Stay near me." The words were clipped, hard, not a request. They walked to the garage, and Felicity felt it now too. A watchful feeling, like eyes on her back. The hairs on her neck stood up. Jorah's hand hovered near her elbow, not touching but ready to. The elevator was broken. Yellow maintenance tape crossed the doors. Felicity swore under her breath. Stairs, I guess. The stairwell was worse than the elevator, concrete and echo and deep shadows. Their footsteps rang out, hers loud, his still somehow silent. They climbed to the 3rd floor, and Felicity was breathing hard by the top. Too much coffee, not enough real food. The door to the 3rd level stuck. She pushed it, and Jorah moved to help, his hand covering hers on the bar. His skin was ice cold. The door opened into wrong. Felicity felt it immediately. The level was too quiet, the shadows too deep, and there, by her car, a figure, man-shaped, waiting. "Dr. Sinclair," the figure said, male voice, conversational. Working late again. She didn't recognize him. Medium height, medium build, forgettable face. But his eyes caught the light wrong, reflecting like an animal's. Jorah stepped in front of her, completely blocking her view. "Leave." One word, but it carried weight that made Felicity's bones ache. The man laughed. "You dare command me? I was feeding in this city when you were still mortal, Jorah Wraithson." Mortal. The word hung in the air like poison. "This is my territory," Jorah said, voice dropping to something that barely qualified as sound. "You break the accords, you hunt the vulnerable." "I hunt what I please." The man moved, and he was too fast, blurring across the space between them. Jorah moved faster. One moment Felicity was behind him, the next she was pushed against the stairwell door, his coat wrapped around her, and Jorah was 10 feet away facing the stranger. They stood in perfect stillness, two statues of white skin and predatory grace. Because the stranger looked like Jorah, not identical, but the same species, same white pale skin, same otherworldly beauty, same sense of wrongness. Vampire, Felicity's mind supplied helplessly. The word she'd been avoiding for 3 weeks while her rational doctor brain insisted on normal explanations. "You protect cattle now?" the stranger asked. "How far the Vampire King has fallen?" "Final warning," Jorah said. The stranger smiled, and his teeth were too sharp. "No." They moved like lightning. Felicity couldn't track it. 1 second they stood apart, the next they were a blur of violence. The sound was terrible, breaking concrete and tearing metal. A car alarm screamed to life, then another. Felicity pressed herself against the door, Jorah's coat clutched around her, and watched the impossible. They fought like movie wire work, like CGI, like nothing human could. Jorah was grace and controlled fury, every movement precise. The stranger was wild, all teeth and claws and animal rage. They shattered a support pillar, cracked the concrete floor. Then Jorah had him. One pale hand around the stranger's throat, lifting him off the ground. The stranger clawed and thrashed, but Jorah's grip didn't waver. "You were warned," Jorah said. "The accords are clear. Hunt the willing, hunt the wicked, never the vulnerable, never those under protection." "She's just food," the stranger choked out. "She is mine." The words rang through the garage. Jorah's other hand moved, fast and brutal, and there was a sound like breaking branches. The stranger went limp. Jorah dropped the body. It hit the concrete and didn't move. Then, horribly, it began to gray, to crack, to crumble into ash. Within seconds, nothing remained but dust and the memory of violence. Jorah turned to Felicity. His face was spattered with something dark, his silver hair disheveled, his pale eyes burning with intensity that made her breath stop. He approached slowly, hands visible, movements careful. "Felicity," he said, just her name, but she heard the question in it. She should run, should scream, should feel terror. Instead, she felt the puzzle pieces clicking into place, the silence of his footsteps, the cold skin. The way security cameras seemed to miss him, the way the nurses never saw him, his watchfulness, his patience, his endless vigil. "You're a vampire," she said. "Yes." "He called you the Vampire King." "Yes." "You've been protecting me." "Yes." Felicity's knees went weak. She sat down hard on the concrete, Jorah's coat pooling around her. He moved to her side immediately, crouching, not touching, but close. "From him?" she asked. "From that thing?" "From Matthias," Jorah said quietly. "He was hunting the hospital staff, the assault 3 weeks ago. That was his work. He would have escalated. He did twice, but I intercepted." Emma, and 2 other women, probably, who thought they'd had close calls. "Why didn't you just kill him before?" "I needed to be certain, to catch him in the act. Vampire law is old and strict. I cannot execute without proof." His jaw tightened. "But when he approached you tonight, his intent was clear. You've been sitting in that waiting room for 3 weeks to protect me from another vampire." "Yes." Felicity laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. "That's insane. You're a king. Don't you have things to do?" Something flickered in his expression, almost a smile, but not quite. Many things, none more important. The weight of that statement settled over her. She looked at him, really looked, took in the inhuman beauty, the predatory grace, the ancient eyes. How old are you? 743 years. Jesus. I knew him, actually, briefly. Interesting man. Another laugh bubbled up. Felicity pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to hold it together. I don't know what to do with this information. You need do nothing, Jorah said. I will continue to ensure your safety. That has not changed. Just like that, walk me to my car forever? He held her gaze. Yes. Why? The question hung between them. Jorah was silent for a long moment, and Felicity watched emotions flicker across his face. For someone who spoke so little, his expressions were eloquent when he allowed them to be. Because when you asked me that first night, he said slowly, you were afraid but brave. Because you trusted a stranger when wisdom said not to. Because I have walked this earth for centuries and never met someone who looked at suffering the way you do, like it personally offends you. Like you take each failure to heal as a wound to yourself. He paused. Because in 700 years, I have never wanted to protect something the way I want to protect you. Felicity's heart did something complicated and painful in her chest. That's not an answer. That's a confession. Yes, he said simply. They sat in the wreckage of the parking garage, surrounded by shattered concrete and the ash of the dead vampire, and Felicity made a choice that would have seemed insane 4 hours ago. Okay, she said. Jorah's eyes widened fractionally. Okay? Walk me to my car, tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. I want you to. She met his gaze steadily. But I want more than silence. If you're going to be in my life, really in it, I need words sometimes. I need to understand. I am not skilled with words. Try anyway. He studied her, and slowly, carefully, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his severe face into something breathtaking. I will try. Felicity stood, her legs shaky, and offered him his coat back. He shook his head. Keep it, you're cold. She was, she realized, shaking with more than adrenaline. She pulled the coat tighter and let him guide her to her car, his hand finally properly on her elbow. His touch was cold but gentle, and it felt right. At her car, she turned to him. The body, the damage. Won't there be questions? I will handle it. By morning this will be repaired, and Matthias will be recorded as having left the city. Vampire business stays in the shadows. Right, of course. Because apparently that was her life now. Vampire politics and shadow governments. Jorah? Yes? Thank you for protecting me, for telling me the truth. He inclined his head. Always, Felicity. She drove home through the pre-dawn dark wearing a vampire king's coat, and everything had changed. The next night, Felicity went to work expecting strangeness, maybe police, maybe questions about the parking garage, maybe a crisis of faith in her own sanity. Instead, she found normalcy. The garage was pristine, no sign of battle. Her shift was busy, a standard Friday night of poor decisions and bad luck. And at 10 o'clock, Jorah appeared in the waiting room. She felt the exact moment he arrived, a pull in her chest like recognition. When she glanced through the doors, there he was, pale and perfect and watching her with those silver eyes. Something had shifted. Before, he'd been a mystery. Now he was a person. A 700-year-old vampire person, but still. The walls between them had come down. When her shift ended at midnight, she approached him differently. No hesitation, no formality. Ready? She asked. He stood, and she saw him take in the change in her demeanor. The corner of his mouth lifted. Always. They walked to the garage, and Felicity found herself talking again. But this time, Jorah responded. Not elaborately, but enough. She told him about her day, the teenager who'd swallowed magnets on a dare, the elderly woman who'd come in thinking she was having a heart attack, but was actually just anxious about her granddaughter's wedding. You care for them, Jorah observed, even the foolish ones. Especially the foolish ones, Felicity said. They need the most help. At her car, she hesitated before getting in. Can I ask you something? Anything. What's it like? Being what you are? Jorah considered, his face thoughtful. Lonely, he said finally. Powerful and eternal, and achingly lonely. We are not numerous, my kind, and we do not often connect even with each other. We are territorial, proud. We remember too many betrayals. Is that why you're alone? Partly, also because I am king. It is a position of necessity, not desire. Someone must maintain the accords, keep our kind from revealing ourselves to yours, prevent incidents like Matthias. He looked at her. It is responsibility without respite. Until you decided to spend 3 weeks sitting in a hospital waiting room. That, Jorah said softly, was not duty. That was choice. Felicity's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken things. She wanted to ask more, to push, but exhaustion dragged at her. I'm off this weekend, she said instead. But Monday? I will be here. She believed him. The weekend passed strangely. Felicity tried to focus on normal things, laundry and groceries and sleeping in, but her mind kept drifting to pale skin and silver eyes, and a voice saying, "She is mine," with absolute conviction. She researched vampires, feeling ridiculous and fascinated in equal measure. Most of it was nonsense, fiction, and folklore, but some threads of truth wove through the myths. The aversion to sunlight, real. The need for blood, real. The immortality, the strength, the speed, all real. She thought about Jorah sitting in fluorescent lighting for hours, how it must have been uncomfortable. He'd done it anyway, for her. Monday came, and Felicity went to work with anticipation humming under her skin. Her shift crawled by. She kept glancing at the waiting room, but Jorah didn't appear until his usual 10 o'clock. When he did, Felicity felt something in her chest settle. Relief, recognition, want. This was dangerous, she knew. Wanting a vampire, a king who'd lived centuries and would live centuries more while she aged and died. The logistics alone were impossible. But when had her heart ever cared about logistics? The week developed a rhythm. Work, walk, talk. Jorah began to open up in small increments. He told her about the court beneath the city, a vast network of tunnels and chambers where the vampire community lived, about the accords, laws that governed vampire behavior and kept them hidden from humanity, about his role as king, mediator, and judge and executioner when needed. It sounds exhausting, Felicity said one night. It is, Jorah admitted, but necessary. Without structure, we would be chaos. Matthias was chaos. There are others like him, always pushing boundaries. I push back. Do you have help? Advisors or something? A council, yes. 12 vampires, old families, traditional powers. They advise. I decide. He paused. They would not approve of this. Of what? Of me spending time with you. Of caring for a human. Felicity's heart tripped. You care for me. It wasn't a question, but Jorah answered anyway. Yes. They were in the garage, halfway to her car. Felicity stopped walking. Jorah stopped too, turning to face her. I care for you too, she said. The words felt huge, terrifying. I know it's complicated and probably impossible, but I needed you to know. Jorah's expression shifted through surprise, wonder, and something that looked like pain. Felicity, I'm not human. I'm not safe. The world I inhabit is dangerous. You've kept me safe every night for a month. From others, not from myself. He stepped closer, and she could see the struggle in his face. I am a predator. Your heart beats, and I hear it. Your blood moves, and I smell it. Every moment near you is control and denial. But you do control it. Now, always, so far. But what if I fail? What if one moment of weakness costs you everything? Felicity understood what he was doing, pushing her away for her own good, noble and infuriating and very like him. What if it doesn't? She countered. What if we're careful? What if this works? For how long? You're human. You age. You die. I remain. So we have now, however much now we get. Jorah looked at her like she was something precious and breakable. You deserve more than now. You deserve forever with someone who can give you daylight and children and a normal life. I don't want normal, Felicity said. I want you. The words hung between them. Jorah closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were bright with something that might have been tears if vampires could cry. You undo me, he whispered. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into shadow before Felicity could respond. She stood alone in the garage, heart pounding, and didn't know whether to chase him or give him space. She chose space. For now. The next night, Jorah wasn't in the waiting room. Felicity told herself it was fine. He'd protected her from the immediate threat. He didn't owe her anything beyond that. The fact that his absence felt like a wound was her problem, not his. She worked her shift in a fog, distracted and miserable. When it ended, she walked to the garage alone, keys clutched between her fingers, hyper-aware of every shadow. Nothing happened. She got to her car safely, drove home safely, spent the night staring at the ceiling, thinking about silver eyes and a voice like dark velvet. The pattern repeated. 3 nights of Jorah's absence. 3 nights of Felicity walking alone, telling herself she was fine, feeling the wrongness of it in her bones. On the 4th night, she was halfway across the hospital lobby when a figure fell into step beside her. Not Jorah. A woman, vampire pale with white hair braided into a crown. She wore modern clothes, jeans, and a leather jacket, but moved with the same predatory grace Jorah had. "Dr. Sinclair," the woman said, "walk with me." It wasn't a request. Felicity's instincts screamed, but they were in public, security cameras everywhere. She nodded. They walked outside, and the woman led her to a black car idling at the curb. The back door opened. "Get in," the woman said. "The king requests your presence." Felicity's heart hammered. "Jorah sent you." "The council sent me. Jorah is otherwise occupied." The woman's expression was unreadable. "You have caused quite the commotion in our world, Dr. Sinclair. The king's absence from court, his obsession with a human. It must be addressed." This was a bad idea. Every instinct said so. But if there was a chance to see Jorah, to understand why he'd vanished. Felicity got in the car. The drive took 15 minutes, heading into the old part of the city where buildings dated back centuries. They pulled up to what looked like an abandoned church, Gothic and crumbling. The woman led Felicity inside, through the nave, to a door hidden behind the altar. Stairs descended into darkness. Felicity followed, and the world opened up. The vampire court was nothing like she'd imagined, not a crypt or dungeon, but a vast underground complex of soaring chambers and elegant architecture. Vaulted ceilings, marble floors, chandeliers that sparkled with what might have been actual diamonds, and vampires, dozens of them, pale and beautiful and terrifying. They watched Felicity pass with interest, ranging from curiosity to disdain. The woman led her to a central chamber, circular and dominated by a raised dais. 12 vampires sat in a semicircle around the dais, clearly the council. And at the center, in a chair that was absolutely a throne, sat Jorah. He looked different here, more regal, more severe. He wore dark formal clothes that emphasized his height and presence, and his pale hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp elegance of his face. When his eyes met Felicity's, they were guarded. "Dr. Sinclair," said one of the council members, a male vampire with a voice like grinding stone, "you have been brought before us to address a matter of great importance." Felicity found her voice. "Which is?" "The king's infatuation with you endangers our community. It distracts him from his duties, creates vulnerabilities, and violates the principle of separation between our kinds." "I didn't ask for his attention," Felicity said, anger sparking. "He offered protection, and I accepted. That's all." "That is not all," said another council member, female, ice blonde. "The king speaks of you in court, defends you against criticism, abandons his responsibilities to sit in a human hospital. This is unacceptable." Felicity looked at Jorah. He sat perfectly still, expression neutral. "You're just going to let them talk about me like I'm not here?" "They speak truth," Jorah said quietly. "I have been neglectful." The words hit like a slap. Felicity stared at him. "You're serious?" "The council is correct. My behavior has been inappropriate for my position. It must end." "So that's it? You ghost me for 4 days and haul me down here to what, officially break up?" "Dr. Sinclair," the stone-voiced vampire said, "you will show respect in this chamber." "Respect?" Felicity rounded on him. "You want respect? How about respecting that Jorah is a person, not just a king? That maybe after 700 years, he's entitled to want something for himself?" "He is not entitled," the ice-blonde vampire said coldly. "He is responsible, for all of us, for maintaining the accords and the peace and the secrecy that keeps us alive. One human woman cannot be worth that." "Then you underestimate me," Felicity shot back. A ripple of reaction moved through the council. Several vampires rose from their seats. The temperature in the room dropped. "Enough," Jorah said. One word, but it cracked like a whip. Everyone froze. He stood, and the sheer presence of him filled the space. "You brought her here without my permission. You threaten her in my hall. This ends now." "We brought her because you would not listen," Stone Voice said. "You must see reason. The human cannot stay in your life." "Her name is Felicity," Jorah said, voice dropping to something dangerous. "And she stays in my life because I choose it. Because in 7 centuries of existence, she is the first thing I have wanted that is mine, not duty or burden or responsibility. Mine." "The Accords," Ice Blonde started. "The Accords say nothing about a king taking a human companion," Jorah interrupted. "They forbid hunting unwilling humans, creating new vampires without permission, and revealing ourselves carelessly. Felicity knows what I am because circumstances required it. She is not a violation, she is a choice." "A choice that makes you weak," Stone Voice said. "A choice that makes me human," Jorah countered, "or as close as I can be. I have served this court for 300 years as king. I have maintained the Accords, judged fairly, protected our people from discovery and from themselves. I have asked nothing for myself. Until now." He stepped down from the dais, moving toward Felicity. "Now I ask, I demand. Felicity Sinclair is under my personal protection. She is mine to care for, mine to defend, mine to love if she will have me. Any who challenge this challenge me." The silence was absolute. Felicity could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then, slowly, the council members sat down. Some looked displeased, others thoughtful, a few almost approving. "Very well," Stone Voice said finally. "But know this, King. If this choice endangers our people, if the human becomes a liability, we will revisit this conversation." "Agreed," Jorah said. "But she will not be a liability. I swear it." He turned to Felicity and held out his hand. "Come." She took it, his cold fingers wrapping around hers, and let him lead her from the chamber. They walked through the court in silence, vampires parting before them, and climbed the stairs back to the church. Outside, the night air felt shockingly normal. Felicity breathed it in, trying to process what had just happened. "You told your entire court you love me," she said. Jorah turned to her. "Yes?" "In front of vampire royalty and politicians." "Yes." "That was incredibly stupid and romantic." A small smile touched his mouth. "I have been told I lack skill with words. I thought action might serve better." Felicity laughed, slightly hysterical. "You threaten to fight anyone who objects to us. That's not action, that's declaration of war. If necessary." He sobered. "I apologize for bringing you into this. The council oversteps, but they are not wrong about the complications. Being with me will not be easy." "I'm an ER doctor," Felicity said. "I don't do easy." "Felicity." He cupped her face with one cold hand, his touch impossibly gentle. "I am offering you a life in shadows, a relationship that must stay secret from your world, danger from my kind who will see you as weakness to exploit, and an ending that will come far too soon, when you age and I remain." "Is there a point to this list of reasons I should run?" "Yes. I need you to understand what you are choosing. I need you to be certain." Felicity covered his hand with hers. "I'm choosing you. Shadows and danger and impossible logistics. I'm choosing you because when I see you, I feel something I've never felt before. Like coming home, like being known. And maybe we only get a few decades instead of forever, but I'd rather have decades with you than a lifetime with anyone else." Jorah's eyes closed. "You are remarkable." "I'm stubborn," Felicity corrected. "There's a difference." "No," he said softly. "There is not." Then he kissed her, and the world narrowed to the press of his cold lips against hers, the careful way he held her like she might break, the feeling of rightness that sang through her bones. He tasted like winter and eternity, and Felicity kissed him back with everything she had. When they broke apart, Jorah rested his forehead against hers. "I will protect you," he whispered, "from everything, from my world and from myself. You have my word." "I'll hold you to it," Felicity said. They stood together in the shadow of the abandoned church, human and vampire, and made promises that should have been impossible. The next months unfolded like a dream. Jorah returned to his vigil, appearing in the waiting room every night Felicity worked, walking her to her car without fail. But now, the walk included conversation, laughter, stolen moments of closeness. He told her about his human life, centuries ago in what was now Romania. A minor noble's son who died of plague and, woken 3 days later, changed. He described the confusion, the hunger, the terror of becoming monster, and the vampire who'd found him, taught him control, gave him purpose. Her name was Elisabetta, Jorah said one night. They sat in Felicity's car, heater running, talking instead of saying goodbye. She was ancient even then, and kind in a way my kind rarely is. She taught me that being vampire did not mean being beast, that we could choose honor. What happened to her? She walked into the sun, Jorah said quietly. 500 years is a long time to exist. She was tired. She chose peace. Felicity took his hand. I'm sorry. It was her choice. I honored it. He looked at her. She would have liked you, your strength, your compassion. I wish I could have met her. So do I. Felicity learned vampire politics, the intricate web of alliances and feuds that defined the court. Jorah introduced her to a few trusted vampires, those who supported his choice or at least accepted it. The woman who'd brought her to court, whose name was Svetlana, became an unexpected ally. She approved of Felicity's refusal to be intimidated. You have spine, Svetlana said. The king needs someone with spine. He is too noble for his own good. Felicity also learned the price of being with a vampire king. The secrecy first. She couldn't tell anyone about Jorah, not friends or family. Her relationship existed in shadows and stolen hours. The danger, second. 2 attempts were made, vampires from rival factions who saw her as vulnerability. Jorah stopped both before they got close, but the message was clear. She was a target. We could end this, Jorah said after the second attempt. I could arrange protection from a distance. You would be safe. And alone, Felicity said. No, we're in this together. You could die. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Life is risk. She touched his face. You're a risk I'm willing to take. He kissed her, fierce and desperate. I do not deserve you. Probably not, Felicity agreed, but you're stuck with me anyway. Seasons changed. Winter gave way to spring, spring to summer. Felicity's life developed a strange duality. By day, she was Dr. Sinclair, saving lives and navigating hospital politics. By night, she was Jorah's, learning about immortality and blood law and ancient feuds. They were in her apartment one evening, a rare night she had off, when Jorah asked the question that had been hovering between them for months. What do you want from this? He asked. Long term. When you think about the future, what do you see? Felicity considered. She was curled on the couch, Jorah beside her, his arm around her shoulders. Outside, summer rain pattered against the windows. Honestly, I try not to think long term. It gets complicated fast. Because of the aging. Because of everything. The secrecy, the danger, the fact that you're immortal royalty and I'm a human doctor. We don't exactly have a roadmap here. No, Jorah agreed. But if we did, if you could choose anything, what would you want? Felicity looked at him, this beautiful, impossible man who'd walked into her life and changed everything. You, she said simply, for as long as I can have you, that's what I want. And if I offered more? Her heart stuttered. What do you mean? Jorah shifted to face her fully. His expression was serious, intense. There is a way for you to become like me. It is dangerous, and the choice once made cannot be unmade, but it is possible. Vampire. He was offering to turn her. Felicity's mind raced. Immortality, eternity with Jorah, never aging, never dying, but also never seeing the sun again, never eating real food, needing blood to survive, becoming predator. I don't know, she whispered. I'm not asking you to decide now, Jorah said quickly, only to think about it, to know it is an option if you want it. Do you want it? He was quiet for a long moment. I want you safe. I want time with you that is not measured in decades. I want forever. He touched her face. But I also want you happy. If immortality would make you miserable, I would rather have your mortal lifetime than an eternity of your regret. That's very romantic and very unhelpful, Felicity said. Jorah smiled. Then I will say this. I will love you regardless, human or vampire, mortal or eternal. That does not change. The choice is yours alone. Felicity leaned into him. Can I have time to think? All the time you need. They sat together in the quiet, and Felicity tried to imagine forever. Tried to imagine watching her friends age and die while she remained. Tried to imagine drinking blood, living in shadow, becoming something other than human. She didn't have an answer yet, but she had time. Or so she thought. The attack came on a Thursday in late August. Felicity was working a night shift, busy but manageable, when chaos erupted. A vampire appeared in the ER, not sick or injured, but hunting. He tore through the waiting room in a blur of violence, and people screamed. Security tried to respond, but against supernatural speed and strength, they were useless. Felicity heard the commotion and ran toward it, medical instinct overriding common sense. She saw the vampire, pale and wild-eyed, blood on his mouth, saw the bodies on the floor, saw him turn toward her with predatory focus. Then Jorah was there. He materialized between Felicity and the attacker, and the rage coming off him was a physical force. "You dare!" he snarled. The attacking vampire faltered. "King, I didn't. You broke into a hospital under my protection. You hunted in my territory. You threatened what is mine." Jorah's voice had dropped to something barely recognizable. "You have forfeited your existence." It happened fast. Jorah moved. The attacker tried to run, and there was a sickening crack. The vampire crumbled to ash. Around them, chaos. Screaming, wounded people, security shouting into radios. And Felicity, standing frozen, realized the exposure this meant. Cameras had caught this. Witnesses had seen. The vampire world's greatest rule, stay hidden, had just been shattered. Jorah seemed to realize at the same moment. His face went carefully blank. "Svetlana," he said to the empty air. The vampire woman appeared from shadow. "My king." "Contain this. Memory alteration, camera footage deletion, witness management. Do what is necessary. The cost will be high. I will pay it. Do it now." Svetlana nodded and began barking orders to other vampires who materialized from nowhere. The situation became controlled chaos, vampires moving through the ER with purpose. Jorah turned to Felicity. "You are unharmed." She nodded, unable to speak. "Good." He touched her face once, gentle. Then he was gone, dissolving into shadow. The next hours were a blur. Felicity treated the wounded normal injuries mostly, bites cleaned and bandaged. People's memories seemed fuzzy, uncertain. The cameras had mysteriously malfunctioned. By dawn, the official story was a PCP-crazed man had attacked the ER before security subdued him. No mention of vampires, no supernatural element. Felicity went through the motions, exhausted and shaken. When her shift finally ended, she walked to the parking garage on autopilot. Jorah was there, waiting by her car. He looked terrible. His usually pristine appearance was disheveled, his eyes haunted. "Felicity." She walked into his arms, and he caught her, holding her tight enough to hurt. She didn't care. She pressed her face into his chest and shook. "I'm sorry," Jorah whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. My protections should have held." Who was he? A vampire from outside my territory, a message from a rival faction. His arms tightened. "They know hurting you hurts me. They will keep trying." Felicity pulled back to look at him. "Then we fight back." "No, you cannot fight this. This is vampire politics at its ugliest." He cupped her face. "Felicity, I have been selfish, kept you in danger because I could not bear to let you go. But tonight proved I cannot protect you, not fully, not forever." Dread pooled in her stomach. "What are you saying?" "That I release you, from this relationship, from the danger, from me. I will arrange protection, ensure no vampire ever threatens you again, but I will do it from a distance. We must end this." "No." The word came out fierce. "Felicity." "No," she repeated. "You don't get to make this decision for me. You don't get to decide what risks I take. I'm trying to save your life. I don't want to be saved if it means losing you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Jorah, I love you. I love you, and I'm not running because things got hard. You could have died tonight, but I didn't. You protected me, like you always do." She grabbed his coat, holding tight. "I know you're scared. I am too. But walking away doesn't solve anything. It just makes us both miserable. You deserve safety. I deserve choice, Felicity countered. And I choose you. I choose this, all of it, danger included. Jorah looked at her with such anguish it broke her heart. I cannot lose you. Then don't push me away. They stood in the parking garage, holding each other, and Felicity felt the moment he surrendered. His shoulders dropped, his grip loosened to gentleness, and he breathed her name like a prayer. What do I do? He asked. How do I keep you safe? The same way I keep you human, Felicity said. We face it together. I am not human. You are with me, she kissed him, tasting his worry and love. And I need you to trust me. Trust that I know the risks and I'm choosing you anyway. Can you do that? Jorah rested his forehead against hers. I can try. That's all I ask. They went to Felicity's apartment together. She called in sick for the next day, and they spent the hours talking, really talking, about the danger in the future and the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. The rival faction will not stop, Jorah said. They see me as weak for loving you. They will push until I break or you die. So we remove the weakness. He looked at her sharply. What? Felicity took a breath. She'd been thinking about this since he first offered, turning it over in her mind. The attack tonight had clarified things. Turn me, she said. Make me vampire. Felicity, no. You cannot make this decision in fear. I'm not. I've been thinking about it for months, and yes, tonight scared me. But it also showed me the truth. I'll never be safe in your world as a human, and I don't want to live without you. She took his hands. I want forever, Jorah. With you. I want to see centuries together. I want to never worry about aging out of your life. I want this. You would give up the sun, your career, your human life. I'd give up everything for you, Felicity said simply. The question is, will you do it? Jorah was silent for a long time. She could see the war on his face, want versus worry. Finally, he said, the transformation is dangerous. Not all humans survive it. I would need to drain you to the edge of death, then feed you my blood. It is violent and painful, and there is no guarantee. What are the odds? Perhaps 70% survival, less if the human is weak or sick. I'm healthy, strong. I'll survive. You cannot know that. No, Felicity agreed. But I have faith. In you, in us. Jorah pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. If I do this, if I transform you, there is no going back. You would be vampire forever, bound to blood and shadow and the laws of our kind. I understand. And if you die in the transformation, I will never forgive myself. If I die, you're forbidden from moping for more than a century. That's an order. Despite everything, he laughed, a small broken sound. You're extraordinary. Is that a yes? He pulled back to look at her. His silver eyes were bright with unshed tears. Yes. If you are certain, if this is truly what you want, I will transform you. I will give you eternity. Felicity kissed him. When? We should wait. Ensure you are ready, that you have settled your human affairs. How long? A month, perhaps 2? 1 week, Felicity said. I'll need to quit my job, arrange things. 1 week, and then we do this. Jorah searched her face. You're certain? I've never been more certain of anything. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and Felicity kissed him back with all the love and certainty in her heart. The week passed in a blur. Felicity resigned from the hospital, citing family obligations. Her colleagues threw her a goodbye party, sad to see her go. She felt guilty for the lie, but knew there was no alternative. She couldn't explain the truth. She settled her affairs, paid off debts, wrote letters to friends and family with carefully vague explanations about traveling abroad. It felt like dying, in a way, putting her human life to rest. Jorah was with her through all of it, supportive and patient. He'd arranged for the transformation to take place in the vampire court under controlled conditions, with medical vampires present in case complications arose. Medical vampires? Felicity had asked. We were not always creatures of night, Jorah explained. Many of us had professions in life, skills that translate to immortality. We have doctors, scholars, artists. You will not be alone in your interests. The thought comforted her. The night arrived. Felicity stood in her apartment one last time, looking at the life she was leaving behind. Jorah waited by the door. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," Felicity said, and she was. They drove to the old church and descended into the court. Word had spread about the transformation. Vampires lined the halls, watching with expressions ranging from curiosity to disapproval. Felicity walked with her head high, Jorah's hand in hers. The council waited in the central chamber. Stone voice stepped forward. "Dr. Sinclair, you have requested transformation. Do you understand the permanence of this choice?" "I do," Felicity said, "and you make it freely without coercion." "I make it for love," Felicity said, looking at Jorah, "and for forever, freely and fully." The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Stone voice nodded. "Very well. The court recognizes your choice. May you survive the night and rise vampire." They were led to a private chamber, beautiful and austere. A bed waited, covered in dark silk. Medical equipment stood ready, modern tech incongruous against Gothic architecture. The medical vampires introduced themselves, explained the process. Felicity would be drained, brought to the edge of death. Then she would drink Jorah's blood. The transformation would take 3 days, her body dying and remaking itself. It would be painful. "I understand," Felicity said. Jorah looked at her. "Last chance to change your mind." "Not a chance," she said. He smiled, sad and loving. "Then let us begin." Felicity lay on the bed. Jorah sat beside her. She saw his hand shake as he reached for her. For all his centuries, for all his power, he was afraid. "I trust you," she whispered. He kissed her forehead, then he bit. The sensation was strange, sharp pain followed by cold spreading through her veins. Jorah drank carefully, controlled, but Felicity could feel her life draining away. The room dimmed, sounds faded. She floated in a gray space between living and dying. Then something warm touched her lips. Jorah's voice, commanding. "Drink." Felicity drank. Blood filled her mouth, coppery and electric. It burned going down, fire in her veins. She drank and drank until Jorah pulled away. "Enough," he said. "Now we wait." The pain started almost immediately. Felicity's body convulsed, every cell rewriting itself. She screamed, couldn't help it. Jorah held her through it, murmuring words she couldn't understand, his presence the only anchor in the agony. Time lost meaning. Pain was everything. Her heart stuttered, stopped, started again with a different rhythm. Her senses sharpened until every sound was deafening, every light blinding. She burned and froze and burned again. And then, slowly, it eased. Felicity opened her eyes. The world looked different, sharper, clearer. She could see individual dust motes in the air, count the threads in the silk beneath her. She could hear Jorah's breathing, the rustle of his clothes, the conversations happening rooms away. And she felt different, stronger, cold, changed. "Felicity," Jorah's voice cautious and hopeful. She turned her head to look at him. He sat beside the bed, hair disheveled, clothes rumpled. He looked like he hadn't moved in days. "How long?" she asked. Her voice sounded different, clearer. 3 days. You survived." His eyes were bright. "You survived." Felicity sat up. No dizziness, no weakness. She felt powerful, electric. "I'm vampire." "Yes." She looked at her hands. Same hands, but the skin was paler. She touched her face, felt sharper angles. Everything was the same but different, human but other. "How do you feel?" Jorah asked. Felicity considered. "Hungry?" He smiled. "That's normal. Come, we will address it." Learning to be vampire was an education. Felicity had to relearn her body, her senses, her strength. She accidentally broke things, moved too fast, heard too much. But Jorah was patient, teaching her control. The hunger was hardest. The need for blood was overwhelming at first, a constant ache. But the court had systems, blood banks, willing donors, careful protocols. Felicity learned to feed without killing, to take only what was needed. "You're doing well," Svetlana told her after a week. "Many new vampires struggle with control. You have it naturally." "I had a good teacher," Felicity said, looking at Jorah. He smiled, and the warmth in his expression made her unnecessary heart clench. The council formally recognized her as vampire, as Jorah's companion. Some members still disapproved, but they accepted it. Felicity was no longer a vulnerability. She was one of them. Months passed. Felicity learned vampire politics, ancient languages, the intricacies of immortal society. She discovered she could still practice medicine in the court. Vampires might heal fast, but they still got injured. Her skills were valued, and every night Jorah walked her to wherever she needed to go, to the medical wing, to their shared chambers, to the court. The ritual continued, even though she no longer needed protection. "Why do you still do it?" Felicity asked one night. "Because I like walking with you," Jorah said simply. "Because it is our tradition. Because I made a promise every night for the rest of your life. Your life is now eternal." "That's a great many walks." Felicity smiled. "I'll hold you to it. I'm counting on it." They walked together through the court, hand in hand, and Felicity felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. This was home. This strange underground world of vampires and ancient laws. Jorah at her side, forever stretching ahead. Years passed, decades. Felicity learned and grew and settled into immortality with surprising ease. She and Jorah became a fixture in the court, the king and his companion inseparable. They faced challenges, rival factions who still saw their relationship as weakness, political upheavals that threatened the accords. But they faced it together, partners in every sense. One night, 50 years after her transformation, Felicity stood in their chambers looking at old photos. Her human life, captured in fading images. Her parents, long dead now. Friends aged or gone, a whole world she'd left behind. "Do you regret it?" Jorah asked. He stood in the doorway watching her. Felicity considered honestly. "Sometimes I miss the sun, and I wish I could have said goodbye properly. But regret the choice? No, never." He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "I am glad." "Are you? Glad I chose this?" "Every day," Jorah said, "every moment. You are the best thing in my very long life." Felicity kissed him. "The feeling is mutual." They stood together in comfortable silence, and Felicity thought about the strange path that had brought them here. A simple request, a desperate ask for safety. "Walk me to my car." Such a small thing, and it had changed everything. A century passed, then another. Felicity and Jorah became legends in the vampire world, the king who fell in love, and the human doctor brave enough to become immortal for him. They ruled the court together, fair and just and utterly devoted to each other. The world above changed. Technology advanced. Societies shifted. But in the vampire court beneath the city, time moved differently. They adapted, incorporated new ideas, but kept the old traditions too. And every evening, without fail, Jorah walked Felicity wherever she needed to go. One night, 200 years after her transformation, they stood in the court gardens. A rare space, an underground cavern transformed into green, growing things sustained by artificial light. Felicity had designed it, missing plants and growing things. "Do you remember the parking garage?" Felicity asked. They stood by a fountain, watching water play over stone. "Every detail," Jorah said. "You were so tired, so brave. You asked a stranger for help and I could not refuse. Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Jorah corrected. "The best was choosing immortality." Felicity laughed. "Fair point." They walked through the garden, and Felicity marveled at the life they'd built. 2 centuries together, and it still felt new. Still felt right. The council had long since accepted their relationship, even celebrated it. They were proof that vampire and human could bridge the gap, that love could transcend species. "Where shall we walk tonight?" Jorah asked. It was their ritual question, asked every evening. "Nowhere in particular," Felicity said, "just with you." He smiled and offered his arm. She took it, and they walked together through their kingdom, their home, there forever. The walks continued, through centuries, through changes in the world above and the court below, through challenges in peace, conflict, and calm. Jorah walked Felicity everywhere, and she walked beside him, 2 immortals bound by love and choice, and a promise made in a hospital parking garage lifetimes ago. 300 years after her transformation, they returned to the surface. A rare trip, carefully planned. They stood outside the old hospital, long since demolished and rebuilt into something modern and gleaming. Hard to believe it started here, Felicity said. Not hard, Jorah said. Inevitable. From the moment you asked, I was yours. Romantic and sappy. Who are you, and what have you done with the stoic vampire king? He pulled her close, kissed her under the streetlights. You have had centuries to corrupt me. I am entirely your fault. Best project I ever took on. They walked the old route, from where the hospital had stood to where the parking garage used to be. The geography had changed, but the memory remained. Felicity could still feel that first night, the fear and desperation, and the strange pull toward the silent stranger who'd offered protection. Thank you, she said. Jorah looked at her. For what? For walking me to my car, for every night after, for forever. It is my honor, he said seriously. Then, now, always. You are my heart, Felicity. My reason. I will walk with you until the stars burn out. That's a long time. Not long enough, Jorah said. They returned to the court as dawn threatened the horizon, descended into their underground kingdom, their home. And that evening, as every evening, Jorah asked where Felicity wanted to walk. She smiled, took his hand, and together they walked through their immortal life. Partners, companions, lovers, king and queen of a hidden world, bound by a love that transcended death and time. 500 years, 1,000. The centuries blurred together in the best way, full of moments both grand and quiet. Felicity became a legend in her own right, the healer queen, renowned for her medical skill and compassion. Jorah ruled with strength and wisdom, and together they transformed the vampire court into something remarkable. But through all of it, through political triumphs and personal joys, one thing remained constant. Every night without fail, Jorah walked Felicity wherever she needed to go. It was their ritual, their promise, their love made tangible. From the hospital parking garage, to the halls of their court, to the gardens they'd built together. Every night, every walk, every moment together. She'd asked if he'd walk her to her car. The Vampire King did so every night for the rest of her life. And because Felicity had chosen immortality, because she'd chosen him, her life stretched into eternity, which meant the walks did too, forever unfolding, step by step, hand in hand, exactly as it should be. On a quiet evening, 1,500 years after that first walk, Felicity and Jorah stood in their private chambers. The court hummed with life around them, their people thriving under their rule. Ready? Jorah asked, offering his arm. Always, Felicity said, taking it. They walked out into their kingdom, into their life, into their forever. And in the comfortable silence between them lived a love that had survived centuries and would survive centuries more. One simple request, one generous answer. Everything had changed from that moment, and neither of them would have had it any other way.